young kids are very sharp, especially the social media kids. They're really sharp about being advertised to. Even when influencers are doing it, or like, they're very sharp about that. When a thing happens that they do organically, just lean into it a little bit, but just let it happen. And then they'll take it the rest of the way.
This is the Box Office Podcast. I'm Daniel Loria, the editorial director of Boxoffice Pro, the pulse of theatrical exhibition. Here this week with my colleagues and co-hosts Rebecca Pahle and Chad Kennerk from Boxoffice Pro. And in this week's episode, Rebecca Pahle will be speaking with Alex DelVecchio, the GM of Rutgers Cinema. That is the on-campus cinema at Rutgers University. Alex will be giving us his insights on the viewing habits of younger audiences, how to reach that really difficult demo from 18 to 24. That's Alex's primary audiences. He knows how to reach them. He'll be joining us in the last portion of this episode to give us those insights. But before we get there, we've got a news update here with Rebecca and Chad. And after that, we have the box office forecast of this coming weekend with our guest analyst, Jeremy Wooster, the box office reporter at The Wrap. So let's get started, guys. And you know I like to start it this way. What you saw last weekend at the movies. Let's start with Chad. Were you able to make it out?
Yeah, I went to see my friends at Metropolitan Theaters, and my wife and I went to see The Fall Guy in IMAX. We had a blast. It's a popcorn flick. I think the art of it is in the stunt work itself. The plot is pretty much there just to get you from one stunt sequence to the next.
It knows what we want.
Exactly. Metal Storm, the fictional movie in the movie, is basically Dune meets Furiosa. So the release window of this is kind of perfect between the two. And I really appreciated David Leitch's introduction, calling this a love letter to the stunt community and also reiterating the importance of the theatrical experience.
Was there like a taped intro before?
Yeah, we saw some of those kind of like post-pandemic, and I feel like I haven't seen one in a while, so I appreciated it.
It's always good to have those, and I appreciate when filmmakers take that extra step to address their audiences. I can't wait to go see it. Unfortunately, it wasn't the greatest weekend for that title, coming in below expectations, opening to 28.5 million over the weekend. The big story from last weekend, not only was that underperformance, it was the number 2 finish of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and its re-release. Rebecca, you don't like the prequels. You're a big Star Wars fan. You're not a prequels fan.
No, I who is a prequels fan? Gen Z?
Children.
I don't.
People under the age of 13 seem to like that stuff.
Yeah, it's not for me. I mean, hopefully I still have plans to go see The Fall Guy in theaters. Hopefully those holds will be good. I'll definitely be checking it out further on in the release window. Not going back to the theaters to see Phantom Menace. I did that once, and it was psychologically traumatizing
I feel like we've
Star
all
Wars
gotten
fans.
burned. Like, do you just go back and maybe it's good this time? I don't know what. I'm glad it overperformed. We'll leave it that way.
Yes,
we needed Phantom Menace to overperform to really make up that hole in the underperformance of The Fall Guy at the box office. But Rebecca, you did make it out to the movies, and it wasn't your neighborhood movie theater.
No, every year there is a Coney Island Film Festival down in Coney Island. A friend of the podcast, April Wright, who's done some documentaries on movie palaces and drive-ins. She wasn't there this year, but she is regularly there with her films. It's at the Coney Island Historical Center, which is this kind of bar/museum/gift shop. Like, it's just a really cool thing that I end up popping into because my boyfriend Eric works it and does the Q&As and everything. And every year they close out Saturday night with a screening of The Warriors, which of course is the Coney Island movie. And I've always wanted to I'm going to stay around for The Warriors. And I did it this year.
A cult classic, I think, beloved by a lot of folks, The Warriors. One of those just iconic 1980s movies. Well, let's go over this week's news here with Rebecca and Chad before we go into our weekend forecast with Jeremy Wooster, who will be chatting about what we can expect from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes this week. Let's start here with the news that Cinépolis is expected to receive the 2024 Cine Europe Milestone Award. Rebecca, what can you tell us about that honor?
Yeah, this award will be accepted by CEO Eddie Duquesne. It's in response to a really great year that the multinational circuit based in Belgium had in 2023. Revenue up by 21.1% compared to 2022. Visitors up 26, attendance up 20.6% compared to 2022. So it's always a nice thing to celebrate those achievements.
And in other news here on the domestic front, we have Paragon Theaters, Chad, welcoming a new chief operating officer.
Yeah, exhibition veteran Brian Hood has just joined Paragon. He comes, of course, from Studio Movie Grill, where he served as COO, Senior Vice President of Operations, and Vice President of Organizational Development. Paragon Theaters has a new location coming up Q1 of next year in Falls Church, Virginia.
I know they've got a big footprint, not only in North Carolina, in Florida as well, I think primarily having a footprint there. Now let's go a little bit further up north to Utah, where Megaplex is opening a new location in Park City. Well, it's new, but they're actually acquiring an existing site. Rebecca, can you tell us more about this new cinema?
Yeah, they have acquired and plans to renovate what was the Redstone 8 Cinema, Kimball Junction in Park City, Utah. The location originally opened in 2004, and now 20 years later, Megaplex is going to be adding some premium seating and amenities. I'm curious to see what those are, given that Megaplex has really been a front runner in the cinema entertainment center space. So clearly, not saying that they're going to cinema entertainment center this one, but they're a company that's doing really interesting things regarding theatrical amenities. Yeah, they're going to start construction this summer. The grand opening slated before the holiday season, and then obviously Park City, we go into Sundance shortly afterwards.
According to reports coming out of the Sundance Institute, it looks like Sundance is currently taking bids for new host cities for that film festival. Let's say Parallel Festival that usually takes place there. Slamdance is already officially moved to Los Angeles. So even with that negative piece of news for our friends in Park City, it's always good to have a little bit of good news, and seeing a great company like Megaplex Theaters coming in and investing on an existing location, bringing it up to speed, that's always great to hear. Now, elsewhere in the country, we have a nationwide initiative from Regal, the second largest circuit in the United States, announcing early bird weekend pricing at its locations. Chad, what can you tell us about this new initiative?
Yeah, so this is for movies before noon on Saturdays and Sundays throughout the summer. So starting as early as 10 a.m., the tickets are going to be anywhere from $5 to $8. They did say it depends on location. And so, yeah, it's a great opportunity. There's a small upcharge if you want to see that film in 40X, IMAX, RPX, and ScreenX, but all showtimes before noon.
It's interesting. I mean, you see those matinee prices, and I'm not sure how often we see them attached to a weekend.
Yeah, I think that's a good observation, Rebecca. The weekend component is something that we don't always see. So it's always great to see a big company with a huge footprint like Regal actually say, hey, we've got lower ticket prices if you want to come in a little bit earlier. And that also extends to our premium formats. Now, talking about lower ticket prices, there is another initiative coming out from another major circuit. This one a little bit more familiar to families. Cinemark is extending its summer movie clubhouse program this summer. Rebecca, can you give us a little bit of background on what that summer movie clubhouse program is exactly?
So it's something that they have been running for a good long while, inviting families out to see recent and more classic during the weekdays. Tickets $175 plus taxes with discounts on F&B as well. So really giving families the opportunity to have a really affordable day out at the cinemas. Some locations doing it on Mondays and Thursdays as well, so plenty of options. And if you want to go see, I mean, they have any number of movies here, but my eyes go right to Paddington 2.
Ooh, that's one of the titles you're going to be screening.
Paddington 2, the Lego movie, the most recent Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Shrek. I do wonder how many Gen Zs are going to show up to Shrek on the big screen, because
hey, they grew up on
that's
those.
A big one.
Now, Chad, when is this program running, and when can people start buying tickets?
It runs from June 10th through August 15th, so 10 weeks altogether, and the tickets go on sale Wednesday, May 15th.
And according to Cinemark, 2/3 of its summer movie clubhouse ticket sales in 2023 came from customers who saw 2 or more films during that program.
A ticket price under $2. You can't beat it with a stick.
No. And they also report that approximately 1/4 of those folks were from customers who saw 5 or more films. So they're seeing repeat business. They have that little bit of boost in their concession stand with a decreased ticket price. I think it's a good idea. It's one of those initiatives that you bring in, you see where the price sensitivities are, you get audiences coming back.
It's a community building initiative.
Hey, you get people used to going back to the movies and they want to come back more often. Well, guys, thank you so much. And now we're going to be moving forward to our Boxoffice Pro weekend forecast segment with this week's guest analyst, Jeremy Wooster, the box office reporter at The Wrap. And following that, we've got this week's feature segment with Rebecca Pahle interviewing Alex DelVecchio, GM of the Rutgers Cinema, the on-campus cinema in Rutgers University. He'll be talking about the viewing habits of younger audiences. That is coming up in the last portion of this episode. So now, without further ado, guys, after the break, our conversation with Jeremy Wooster for this weekend's Boxoffice Pro weekend forecast. And we are back here on our Boxoffice Pro weekend forecast segment with this week's guest analyst, Jeremy Wooster, the box office reporter from The Wrap. Jeremy, we've been having these conversations on the phone for 7 years now, 8 years on everything that is coming to our screens. It's great to finally have you on the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
So let's talk Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes here. It's the 4th part of the new franchise that originally came out through 20th Century Fox, now the first installment under the 20th Century Studios banner. We've got 3 movies that performed just well enough to have more sequels that I don't think anyone was really asking for, but these movies always seem to deliver. And the financial results have been pretty good so far. I'm going to go over the background here of the trilogy before we get into it, Jeremy, to give our listeners a little bit of reference. The first part in 2011, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, opened to $54 million, played out to $176 domestic and $481 million worldwide. The sequel, coming out in 2014, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, opened to a franchise high $72 million, played out to $208 million domestically and a worldwide high of $710 million. And then the last part is War for the Planet of the Apes. That came out in 2017, opened to $56 million domestic, played out to $146 million domestic, closed out its global run for $490 million. Jeremy, with this in the background, how would you characterize this franchise?
When I look at it in terms of the larger run for 20th Century Fox in the 2010s, this sounds like a really backhanded insult, but I really don't mean it that way. It's kind of a second tier franchise, like the first tier obviously being the Avatar series. This one, though, it made solid returns through all 3 films. They made them for, $150 million budgets, and then would make a solid return theatrically, and it was just enough to keep going. It was never going to be a huge, 700 million plus franchise, I feel, because it's a very dark franchise. It's a very dystopian franchise, particularly the last one, War for the Planet of the Apes. It's very bleak, very, it's all shot in these snow-covered mountains, very little color, and they're marketed as movies that are very, very dark. I mean, the movie's even called War for the Planet of the Apes. Now, that makes it interesting for this new installment, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, because when I look at the marketing for this movie, while there's still that very dramatic air to it, that intensity to it, it is also the most brightly colored of the 4 films so far. There's all these gorgeous shots of nature. There's this, they keep saying the apes together strong line. It's a story about this new character rising up to fight against a Neolithic warlord. And there's much more of a hopeful vibe to this one than the previous films. There is still that darkness. It is still Planet of the Apes, but it does make me wonder if the way this film is shot, the way it's been marketed, and what the story is about is going to help the film gross more than any of the previous installments.
Well, let's look at the box office forecast we have here, and a reminder to our listeners. We usually update these by the time the episode's up online. So to get our final forecast, including the latest pre-sales data, don't forget to check boxofficepro.com. Jeremy, I know you also are tackling weekend preview articles on your end at the Wrap. Here at Box Office Pro, we're starting the week looking at an opening weekend range between 35 and 45 million. For Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. That would really make it the lowest performing opening weekend in this iteration of the franchise. But we do have to remind everyone listening, it's not a reflection of the film itself. It's a reflection more of the marketplace. We had a movie like The Fall Guy that I think everyone in the industry expected to open above 30 million, not hit that benchmark last weekend, opening to 28.5 million. I think a disappointment all around. And since we're having a big reset here since 2017 to 2024, we have to account for market conditions, which is why we have something this low. Does that track with what you're hearing, Jeremy, from your sources?
I've been hearing a little bit more optimistic. I've been hearing 40 million range. I've also been hearing that it could stretch out to 50 million if the IMAX ticket sales are really robust. Like, this film is getting very, very, very heavy. It's a movie that really lends itself to the big screen experience. IMAX, in their earnings call, was extremely bullish about this film. And I don't know if it gets to the 56 million that War for the Planet of the Apes made. Like you said, we're very much in a diminished market. But if the film is able to really convey, like, you have to see this on the big screen, and more importantly, it's able to convey to moviegoers that they don't need to see the previous films to really get into this. If that sinks in enough moviegoers who again willing to get a chance, then I could see this film going far. That is the most important thing here. We don't always know if the messaging in a movie's marketing is actually sticking with the audience. And that's the really important thing, because I'm sure that a lot of the audience that went out to see the previous Apes will come out for this one. But it's a question of, after 7 years after the last movie came out, if they're going to be people like, well, I don't know what's going to be going on. I don't know if I'm going to want to see this, if it's all going to go over my head, or if people will know, oh, okay, this is a jumping on point.
Yeah, that $40 million benchmark that you bring up, I think, makes a lot of sense. I think all of us would love to have this open at 50 or higher in the context of the current marketplace. Obviously, on our end, we're tracking a little bit downwards just over the overall health of where major studio films have been this year, which has been, listen, we can keep on pointing to the strike, but I still can't make sense how a weekend like the prior one, you have a movie like The Fall Guy open below our primary comp, Bullet Train, and you have a gross overperformance here from the re-release of Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, finishing up in second place with 8 million. I can't make heads or tails here. Where do you situate the current marketplace the way we're at?
Well, I think part of it has to do with the fact that the highest grossing film in April was an extremely bleak dystopian movie, Civil War, that we always talk about it. And I know that you've talked about it all the time. It's all about momentum. And when you don't have as many people going out to movies, then the awareness of what's coming up can decrease. And while there have been people who went out to see Dune Part 2 and Godzilla X Kong in March, that's still a good 6 weeks removed from Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. Like, does the retention rate stay there? Not having a film like A Fate of the Furious or even a Shazam in there in April to prime the pump for the summer box office, I think is really part of the reason why there is much more of a pessimistic look at the awareness isn't building up. So we really got to down tune these. But there's still a few more days in the lead up. There will be reviews coming out. And I don't know if beat expectations is the right thing to say, because even the highest expectations for this film are less than what War made. But maybe it overcomes the most pessimistic of projections.
I think that's fair. Yeah, I think anything under 40 million is on the lower end of estimates of projections here that are a little bit more pessimistic, a little bit more based on, like you mentioned, Jeremy, the momentum of the marketplace, the awareness in the marketplace. That's one of the reasons why our tracking has gone down, especially in the light of that underperformance from The Fall Guy. But the ceiling here is high, and it's very plausible for this to outperform that $40 million high end of our projection rate and really get close to that $50-55 million plus, particularly if those IMAX screenings perform well. You mentioned that earnings call. We've been tracking some of the trailers that Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes has had. There's been some IMAX trailers that have really, really performed really well on the engagement side of things. If IMAX does well, I think Apes do well. Is that a fair assessment?
I do think it's a fair assessment. And as you look at almost every print ad out there is see this in IMAX, see this in IMAX, see this in IMAX. It's just a sign of how IMAX really is now become the cornerstone of the post-COVID market. If you've got IMAX, it's going to really help sell that you need to see this in a theater. You should not be waiting for this for streaming because you're not going to get the full effect of what this movie can be. And I think that's something that it's smart for IMAX. I think it's smart for Disney because they've largely sat out so far this year. And I think to really make their acquisition of 20th Century really pay off, like these are the kinds of films that really need to work. If paying billions of dollars just for Avatar, just for The Simpsons is not going to cut it. There needs to be other films out there.
And this is that profitable performer. When they were making their assessment on whether to make a bid for 20th Century Fox or not, this was probably in some deck saying, hey, you know what? I think we can do something with this.
Oh, yeah. Like there had been rumors back in 2017, like, okay, can we keep this going? It was something that had been on the minds of 20th Century Fox. I don't think it was greenlit when the merger happened, but it's like, yeah, it's not surprising. If you're going to spend all this money, you want to see if you can keep this going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll find out how that performs at the end of this weekend. So don't forget to check boxofficepro.com on Sunday for weekend estimates. And while you're at it, don't forget to check out Jeremy's writing over at thewrap.com, where he gives you not only the box office preview side of things, but also an assessment of the weekend's performance. Jeremy, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And now coming up on the Box Office Podcast, Rebecca Pahle interviews Alex DelVecchio, the GM of the Rutgers Cinema, the on-campus cinema in Rutgers University. They'll be talking about the viewing habits of younger audiences, how to engage with them, how to reach them, how to make sure that they're coming to your theaters. That is coming up after the break.
Alex DelVecchio, General Manager of the Rutgers Cinema, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to start off with, I know this is the cinema associated with Rutgers University. I guess it's the on-campus cinema, but I really don't know much about it beyond that. Can you give us kind of a rundown of what the cinema is and what your audience is like?
So about 7 years ago, we opened up a movie theater on a college campus here. It's a first-run theater. Any Friday night, we have the newest movie coming out. It's a very specific audience, you know. I think I polled it last year, and we had a weekend where 97% of our audience was between 18 and 23. And if I had expanded that to 16 to 23, it probably would have been 99%. Over the summer, we do a little bit better with local towns and parents coming and summer camps and all that fun stuff for kids' movies, but you know, Labor Day to Christmas and then Martin Luther King Day to Memorial Day were pretty much, you know, a very, like, if you want to know what 18 to 24-year-olds want to see, like, this is a pretty good little window into it.
Yeah, I mean, that's your bread and butter. I mean, that's the discussion everybody's been having about getting in those Gen Z audiences in this last year. What's worked well for you? Did you anticipate Five Nights at Freddy's being the big hit that it was?
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, there are two movies that I think really show sort of the potential both ways, where Five Nights at Freddy's, you know, we could see it coming. The staff never called it Five Nights at Freddy's. They called it FNAF. Like, they never called it Five Nights. It was just... Yeah. And 3 months out, they couldn't wait to see it. You know, the trailer anticipation, all that fun stuff. And the movie really delivered. You know, I mean, the debut was $80 million. I mean, I had 1:30 a.m. shows here that were selling out. You know, didn't have enough seats for it on opening weekend. It was great. And I think it showed because they all knew. Like, that. It was funny when I was reading it. They all knew it was day and date. They knew it was on Peacock. They wanted to watch it in a movie theater. And it was great and encouraging. just to see. They wanted to be around people. They wanted to go with their friends. I had so many people dressed up here in bear costumes and all that stuff. They really had a fun time that weekend. And then what it showed on the other side for where day and date could really hurt you, because we talked about that $80 million debut. It ended at 137. It got cut off quick. And I remember very specifically because the weekend was so good and Sunday night was great. And I thought, we're going to have a great week. And I remember a very fun story. I saw one of my staff members, I was watching on cameras, and they were on their phone behind the concession stand. So I'm like, this is good. I get to go be mean boss and tell him to get off his phone.
Yeah, bad cop.
Yeah, and I go up to him, and he's watching Five Nights at Freddy's on his phone the Monday after it came out. And then as he's doing that, I even told him, like, well, okay, there's 7 things wrong with this, but why are you watching it on Peacock? And he said, no, I'm not watching it on Peacock. This is on one of my websites.
Oh, gosh.
That also, which shows the other aspect of it. And that was big, which was they're not going to give you repeat viewings if it's day and date. They'll come out the first weekend and they'll show out, and they were so into the movie and so happy it did well. I can't think of many people I saw a second time,
They don't tend to be watching it when they do watch it on streaming via Peacock. It's that pristine downloadable, illegally downloadable copy.
Yeah, and and they all, I'm air quoting here because I know it's a pub, but they call it my site because they always say, oh no, it's on one of my sites, and then the movie's out there, it's perfectly crisp HD, and we're competing with that too. Yeah, and I really can't express how impressive that opening number was because the audience that might skip theaters for day and date, you gave a day and date release to, and they chose to come out to the movies. It's really something to be optimistic about more than anything. Not to pivot movies, but a movie that came out 3 weeks later and opened to half of that, which was Hunger Games, which appealed very much to the same group. Like we did very well for Hunger Games, but that movie played forever. I mean, in its 5th weekend, I was still getting, it was like, I called it an auto 60. We always got 60 people on Friday night for that movie.
Nice.
And that one, I don't think even had its PVOD debut until December 19th. And I think it came out November 16th. So they gave that one a really good run. Lionsgate did not make the mistake of saying it's debuting on PVOD in 2 weeks, which is always something that drives me crazy. I always joke, I always say when PVOD comes up, the P is for pirated. It's when its pirated debut is coming out. Because, I've never met anyone who's come to a movie here or works for me. And I know it's a specific age group that's ever spent $25 to rent a movie for 24 hours. I've just never met a person who's done it. But they see it, and they'll see it at home, and they'll spend December 20th, the next day watching Hunger Games instead of coming back. And it's just something to compete with, and especially when PVOD, when it's announced, is not announced as premium video on demand. It's advertised, at least on social media where my kids live, as its streaming debut. And they all think it's coming out, for free on Netflix. When they see, it's only in a week, I won't go see it this week. It's going to be on Netflix 7 days from now. It's not on Netflix 7 days later, but then it just goes out of their minds. You don't get anything out of it. I wish the PVOD dates wouldn't be advertised until like the day before, say, hey, it's coming out tonight at midnight.
What do you do in that situation? What can you do when it's something like maybe a Focus Features release when it hits PVOD 3 weeks?
Holdovers? What you do, you just have to leverage the opening weekend as much as you can. It's very important, and that's why those movies for a smaller theater like me, and I'm sure people listening, those can be tough because you might wind up never playing the movie because you need it on the break. You need it when it comes out. And if you get it 3 weekends in and now, this movie's building momentum, but it's on PVOD that day or it's on streaming that day, it's going to get kneecapped, and then all you have is a good movie playing into an empty room, and nobody wants that. Not to keep things to Universal. I love Universal. I probably play their movies 40 out of 52 weeks a year. But, Holdovers was kind of the same thing, right? Like Holdovers had a nice run, and then they put it on as soon as they could. And then there were theaters who had it, and then they didn't have people watching it, and it's tough. You really have to try to get it on the break. Platform releases in general, that stuff can be really hard.
Like it's different if you're a multiplex and you have 12 screens or 14, 16.
I have to commit to really one movie a week, right? So I want to get that call right, and I want to get what people watch. And sometimes I have to decide a couple weeks out. And, then it can be really hard when you book a movie. Okay, you're great in-house marketing it, doing all you can. And then all of a sudden, 4 days before, it's like, hey, surprise, it's coming out on Peacock this Friday. It's like, well, that isn't great because now I'm stuck with it. And I'm sure it's happened to more people than me.
What sort of research or marketing work goes into knowing what's going to be a hit because you kind of have the captive audience. I mean, like you said, it's when the college is open and students are there, that's going to be your audience. How do you pick what's going to connect with that audience? And then what do you do to market that ahead of time? Or do you really need to do that much?
Really, and I know anyone listening knows this, get in your lobby, get behind the stand and ask. I call them light up movies. Like, what movies do they light up about when I mention it? Like, if I say Deadpool to someone outside that door right now, they're going to light up like, oh, I can't wait to see Wolverine. Or and in exciting news, if I say Inside Out 2, people are lighting up about that. So it'd be nice to break our curse a little bit. Let's get back to that. You just got to get in it and ask. And then the harder thing about it for me, because, I was 30 when I started. I'm 37 now. Is that you'll be surprised how young folks are, So it's easy to make a mistake and think that, oh man, everyone can't wait to watch the new Indiana Jones movie. And then
just like, that's not
broken when they look at you and go, what's an Indiana Jones? And it's just that nostalgia factor means nothing. You need the next thing. Sometimes it's just taking a shot. Hunger Games, I didn't know. Like Hunger Games, I genuinely wasn't sure. Like, is this going to be for folks who read the young adult novels 12 years ago? Who aren't 19 right now. And I was really encouraging when that movie, it was like on opening weekend, I would say it was an inoffensive weekend. Like, oh, this did pretty good. And then weekend 2, weekend 3, weekend 4. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, this is becoming a great thing to anchor around, through early December. This is going great.
Yeah. How do you take advantage of that when you can feel that momentum building?
You just got to try to be really clever. I mean, I hate to say it's luck sometimes. Sometimes it's luck. If an out of nowhere movie came out in mid-May right now, I'm not going to have room for it. Like just November 16 was Hunger Games. I just got lucky because December 2nd and 9th are normally soft weekends. So I was able to hold it for as long as I could. And it did great. Like it did so well and appealed to that audience so well. And that was actually an interesting case where the movie was actually doing great. I don't know if you saw like on Twitter and social media, it had these little 25, 30-second video clips that kids were filming. And normally that drives you crazy, but it was actually driving like engagement during the movie's run, and I was just stunned by it.
Filming in the cinema?
You can see, yeah. So like it was like on Twitter, not my kids, never my kids. It all happened.
Okay.
But no, like I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing like something has 70,000 shares up, and it's a scene from the movie, and then it's got all this engagement, and all of a sudden all these young folks are re-engaging it, and it almost became very natural, in a way that wasn't forced. And then the movie had a nice second, third, fourth weekend because if folks didn't see it, they wanted to go see it. That movie had a very interesting run. Like that one was interesting. Anyone But You had a very interesting run, because that movie really didn't open well at all and then just never stopped. It just went for 11 or 12 weeks. Is another, not to beat the dead horse of keep movies in theaters exclusively longer, but it doesn't just apply to older audiences. It especially applies to younger ones who are very sharp about getting their hands on movies they can in a different format. Exclusivity is the play for as long as you can, because you never know. Like Puss in Boots, the same thing. Puss in Boots played forever, and that was exclusively almost Gen Z folks, I think. So that movie did really well.
And you used a word that I think is so key to this, which is organic. People were thinking for so long, like, oh, what can we do to get young kids back into cinemas? What are we going to, they're so used to streaming. They're so used to, I don't know, there's so much competition. They have video games, they have social. What are we going to do to get them back? They want to come back. They're coming back. You just have to meet them where they are.
Yeah, and again, if Five Nights didn't prove that, what did? They all knew they could have watched it at home. Or, whether it was Five Nights at Freddy's or Hunger Games or Anyone But You or Mean Girls, they'll show you that they want to come out. The big example is Gentle Minions. I mean, if you want to talk about a movie that just became its own thing on its own, that I don't think anyone saw coming.
No one knew what was going on with that when it happened. And I think that was a big wake-up call for people in the industry of like, we should have known and we should have been ready to lean into it.
Yeah. And then, what was interesting was that it would have been nice if my staff told me, because I have a staff that was all on the subreddit.
The all hands meeting the next day is like, all right, if there's another TikTok trend, like.
But I said, why are there kids here in tuxedos? That seems a little strange. And they said, oh, it's Gentle Minions. It's taking over subreddit. It's doing the whole thing. And I was like, that would have been great info 3 days ago when I did the staffing this weekend.
When Barbenheimer comes, you're ready.
Barbenheimer was great. I mean, that's another great example. If you force that young kids are very sharp, especially the social media kids. They're really sharp about being advertised to. Even when influencers are doing it, or like, they're very sharp about that. When a thing happens that they do organically, just lean into it a little bit, but just let it happen. And then they'll take it the rest of the way. I mean, that's a great example of it.
I assume your staff is also young
Yeah.
college
They're
students.
all students, yeah.
How do you handle, I guess, social media or promotion? I know as a small cinema, you're going to have limited resources. Does your staff, do they make their own videos? Do you encourage them to kind of get creative with it?
Oh yeah, well, on our Instagram, if there's a TikTok trend, we try to do it, and then we share out on our Instagram page. It's very tricky to advertise on TikTok, but you can share your TikToks to Instagram, and that's a good way to do it.
And then just cross your fingers, yeah.
Yeah, but really what we do is we want to make When You're Here a little different and have that college feel to it. So like when we had the It movies, I went around all the campuses and I was hanging red balloons everywhere. We paint the windows all the time using the art department. Our staff will just be in costume sometimes. Like I had a Pennywise running around the theater. When it's Smile, we're just gonna have one staff member down the hall doing the creepy smile at you. Then you open the door and there's another one inside doing the smile at you. I mean, that was great. Just try to haunt.
That's great because if you ask, I mean, most theater employees, hourly employees, if you're at a small college theater in AMC, they're going to be young people. Yeah. You ask who wants to stand around doing a creepy smile. Like you'll probably have more people who want to do it than you can use. It's just a matter of getting these people involved.
Yeah, and the best thing about that is when you do it, and if you get somebody, like anybody at all, and it's on college that shares the video out and say, this is what's happening, boom, you're good, and then very little effort, and then people get a little bit of FOMO, and then your next couple weekends are really good, and they'll even ask me, like, hey, is the clown coming tonight? I'm like, I don't know, you got to show up.
Do you work with other groups, like on the Rutgers campus? Like, I don't know if they're like an anime club or a French club or something like that?
As much as we can, but it's tricky, because they all want it Friday at 7. Yeah. I'm like, well, a little busy that weekend. But no, I mean, we reach out if we think there's a natural crossover. Like when it was probably too on the nose, but like when Mario Brothers came out, I just reached out to all the esports groups, anybody, just said, hey, if you guys are into Mario Brothers, we'll be showing it. When Everything Everywhere came out, all I had to do was reach out to all the film clubs and everything, because that movie was just film club nirvana for those folks.
And literally, are you just reaching out and saying like, hey, this is a personal note, we're playing it? You're not like...
Yeah, that's all it is. Like, it's nothing more than that. Not saying they have to do anything or they don't, but like we have it. If there's a car club, I'll reach out to the F1 folks, say, hey, Fast 9's coming out next week, just be aware, or Gran Turismo last August, I definitely was trying that. Just reach out, try to find them where they are. But again, that's where, they don't like being advertised to. They don't like salesmen, and they don't like carnival hucksters or something. So you have to be really careful to not be those things.
Well, you have to be genuine. What I'm hearing from you is like, literally just reach out to clubs and tell them when it is coming out and tell them that you are getting it, because you assume they know. They very likely do not know.
No, nobody knows.
Just things like release dates.
Yeah, very few. I call it my mom test. Very few movies pass my mom test, which is she doesn't know anything about movies. So like Barbie got on her radar last year, and I don't think she knows any other movie that came out last year. So you always want to just be, reaching out and say, hey, if you like playing Gran Turismo, there's a pretty good movie that came out called Gran Turismo that is using,
It takes legwork, but if you get those relationships going, then hopefully, people are going to follow you on social media. They're going to get more aware. They're going to see the trailers, movie going begets movie going.
Oh, yeah. Yep. And then, make sure that when they show up, you're doing a little extra, and that's where I say when I did whether the staff was dressed as the clowns, or when we did the nun weekend, I had folks dressed up as scary nuns.
Where do you get the nun costumes? Is it like the theater department did The Sound of Music or something?
No, I wish it was that cool. No, just going to Party City and getting face makeup and then asking your best staff member, hey, who wants to do this? And then what we did, we didn't even advertise it. She dressed up like the nun and just rode the campus bus around all day. That's all. Creeping people out, and then I was like, "Hey, if the cops get called on you, my number's here." But
okay, I'll just have a business card. Like, no, I'm at work.
Yep, and then she had her Rutgers Cinema hoodie on underneath. So if someone asked why you dressed like that, she just lifted it up. Boom, Rutgers Cinema. Hey, come on by tonight,
There you go. And how'd you do with the nun?
The Nun 1 did amazing. Nun 2 did pretty good. But the Nun 1 was really fun. Like, that was a fun weekend here. And that one did great. This Pat, more recently, like for 5 nights, we were, half the staff is dressed as bears. Dress up as your favorite Bear, do your thing, which was a hit on Thursday night, and they got so overheated by Friday, it was done.
I want to ask you too. I know you do its first run. I did see on Facebook you do some rep stuff, like you still do the Rocky Horror.
Oh, they do really well. So we do 2 of those in October and 1 in the spring, because we try to protect it. Because if you do it every week, I think it can get a little tough. But no, those are great. I mean, we have a group here. It's called Friday Night Cast. They're out of Aberdeen, New Jersey. So it's a legitimate interactive prop bag, the whole 9 show, and it's great. I mean, the students love it. They're throwing toilet paper all over the place. Cleaning it's a nightmare, but it's fine. But no, that's fun. I mean, you get the cast out. They're live singing, interacting, and that's great too, because you can only get that in the theater. You're not getting that watching it at home. This is something that only exists here in the way it exists. That one always does great.
It's things like that where people might think, oh, Rocky Horror Midnight Show, and that, that's been done for literal decades. Like, well, that's old hat. We got to rack our brains to think of something new. It's like, no, don't invent the wheel. Don't reinvent the wheel. Young kids have not seen Rocky Horror in a midnight show.
And it's always, I mean, I tell anyone who ever thinks of going, I'm like, you will always go there, and in an hour and 50 minutes, you will have a fun time. I promise you. You'll have fun in the 2 hours you're there. You'll probably walk out thinking, well, some of that was pretty weird, but it's still fun. And it's great. And it's great to do. Yeah, no, those are really successful here when we do those.
I think it was Brian Ostrick at the Music Box Theater in Chicago talking about how when Asteroid City came out, his staff was like, okay, let's do a Wes Anderson rep. And the staff was like, oh, hasn't everybody seen Royal Tenenbaums? Everybody's seen Bottle Rocket? And they're like, no, we were like 2 years old when those, we haven't seen them, and we want to see them on the big screen.
To that point, when we reopened from COVID, it was October of 2020. So there was really like flexing your rep muscle, right? Because you're playing a lot of that. And we played Harry Potter 8 weeks in a row. When Potter came out, even the 8th one, and this is what stunned me, because it just reminds me, because I remember working at an AMC when we sold out like 18 theaters to the midnight show for it. Even the 8th one, so many kids were coming to watch it saying, hey, I've never seen this on the big screen before. And like, I wasn't able to watch this on the big screen. And I was like, oh, I did the math. I was like, oh yeah.
It's a little bit feast or famine with the schedule in the past few years. Even before COVID, you had the kind of slow periods of January, September. How are those periods for you? Because those are like kids coming back to school then.
Warner Brothers has been so awesome with the first week of September, because that's when they move in and they don't have homework yet. So there was a run where it was rotating between like It, The Nun, It 2. Then we were just killing it. And then when we reopened, our first really great weekend back was the first week of September of 2021. Shang-Chi did amazing for us. Like, it did every bit what a normal Marvel movie would do. And it was really great. But yeah, it's all on the release calendar. Like, our 4 biggest movies ever, Black Panther 1, Joker 1, and the 2 It's. They open early in a semester and then they just play forever, because the kids will just keep coming back if they love it.
Not movies that hit streaming or hit people.
No, movies that were protected, and that's why I'm super, I can't wait. I know I hate to say it, because I know everyone's saying Q4 is so far away, but I mean, Beetlejuice, Smile 2, The Joker, Terrifier 3, Venom 3, Wicked, Moana. We have a great fall ahead. You just got to get there.
We want to get to Q4, but all right, we got summer before then. What are you hearing from your staff, or what are people excited about?
And I'm really excited about it because we need them back as a brand. But Inside Out 2 definitely has that light up factor. When I mentioned that Inside Out 2 is coming out, a lot of folks that are 20 now, they might have been, I don't want to speak out of turn, might have been 9 to 11 or 9 to 12 years old when it came out in theaters. So this is their movie. They're used to it being in theaters. Like, they wouldn't think that Inside Out 2 would go to Disney Plus. So I don't think you're going to have that issue. That maybe I would be very surprised if that doesn't become a big one. Then Despicable Me 4 3 weeks later, and then Deadpool a few weeks after that, where my hope lies. And like, this is where I hope that things work out, but you never know. I really, really hope that Glenn Powell becomes a star and that Twisters does well, because that would be so great, because that would give us a great July. And Anyone But You is really hot right now. Like, he could not be hotter. I really hope that works out. It might have a little, just for my theater only, there might be a little bit of What's Twister to it. But I think Glenn Powell fights tornadoes or chases them, sells itself. I don't think you need the nostalgia for that movie.
I mean, I think Twisters was one of those. I feel like everyone got really excited at the CinemaCon presentation of it. Well, it was so good. I think, Glenn Powell definitely has that star quality. I'm thinking I'm thinking, what about you? Did you bring in inflatable cows and toss them around the theater?
Well, I'll tell you, if I will take that wind booth standee that they had at CinemaCon, because that was cool. I don't know if I'll get, but that thing was awesome. But
for those who weren't at CinemaCon, there was kind of like the Barbie box last year. It was a little booth that you go in, and those fun ideas that you can really lean into.
I don't know if General Minions is played out yet or not. I'll see with the staff. But like when we had Minions, the staff started showing up in suits because they were really leaning into it. So we'll see if Despicable Me 4 has the same thing.
But you don't want to assume. You don't want to assume that it's going to happen, because then if it's not organic, if it's forced, you will just look very out of touch.
And then just going old, like Deadpool and Wolverine, great title. We're good. We'll have the staff out, and normally at least 2 of my folks will be wearing costumes when they rip tickets and all that stuff. But then the crowd that comes in always wears. I mean, Barbie was like, everyone was dressed up like Barbie last year. So that'll be a lot of fun when that weekend comes.
Well, Alexander, thanks so much. It's been great talking to you, and I want to keep up. I'm excited to see what other marketing stuff you guys do, because like with the nun on the bus and the smile, like you don't have to spend a ton of money to do these things. Just be stupid and fun.
Oh yeah, well, I promise you, arts and crafts, we're going to have a fake sandworm for Beetlejuice. I can't wait. We're at least going to eat 4 of our guests. It'll be awesome. I guess if I'm leaving on one thing, be optimistic about the young folks. They like us. They're not abandoning us. They want to come out and come to your movies, and as long as the right product's in it, they'll come out.
And that was Alex DelVecchio, the GM of the Rutgers Cinema, speaking about the viewing habits of younger audiences with my colleague Rebecca Pahle. A huge thank you to both of them for their appearance in this week's episode of the Box Office Podcast. And a big thank you to our prior guests, Jeremy Wooster and our co-host Chad Kennerk, for their insights. I'm Daniel Loria, and I want to thank you once again for joining us on this podcast. We'll be back again next Thursday with a new episode. We'll talk to you again soon.